We begin our unit with quadratic systems. Let's start by reviewing factoring. To begin factoring, remember to check for the GCF first and pull that out. To factor, we want to factor out our greatest common factor first, and then we want to look and see if we can do target product, target sum, or difference of squares to see if we can continue to factor. In this particular problem, in example 1, each of these terms is divisible by 3, so the GCF is 3. So the greatest common factor of 3, we pull this out, and what's left, 3 goes into 3x squared times, 3 goes into 24, 8x times, and 3 goes into 45, 15. Now we just go ahead and factor, and since this is just an x squared in front, x times x is x squared. So all I need are the two numbers that multiply to give me 15 but add to give me 8, and that's 3 and 5. So the target product is 15. The target sum is 8, and 3 and 5 will give me 15, but they will add together to give me 8. So this is the answer. Let's just say we did not recognize our answer. We could also use the snowflake method. In the top part here, this is our target sum of 8. The bottom part here is our target product of 15. This right here is the AX term. So whatever A is in your trinomial, remember the standard form for a trinomial is AX squared plus BX plus C. So A in my new trinomial is 1, so that's 1x. And then these are my factors, the two numbers that multiply together to give me 15 but add to give me 8. So that's 3 and 5. So now at this time we reduce our fractions. This is already reduced, so that becomes one of my factors. Reduce this fraction, and it is already reduced, so that becomes my other factor. And then remember we took a 3 out at the very beginning. So either way we want to do this, we will end up with our answer, 3 times x plus 3 times x plus 5. Let's look at example 2. In example 2, there is a negative in front of here, and remember that when there's a negative in front and we're factoring, we want to factor out the negative. These terms are all divisible by 5, so I want to pull out my GCF, which is negative 5. Also, each of these terms has an x in common, so I will pull out an x as well. This will leave me x squared, negative 10x, negative goes into negative, this is going to be positive 24. So I already have one of my factors, the negative 5x. So at this point, this is just an x squared in front. I already know that x times x is x squared, so I just need the numbers that multiply to give me 24, but combine to give me negative 10. So the target product is 24, the target sum is negative 10. That's going to be negative 6 and negative 4. So this is what I put in here, and this is my answer. Let's just say I did not recognize that. I could also do the snowflake with it. The target product is positive 24. The target sum is negative 10. AX, go in these two spaces. A is now 1x squared, so this is 1x, 1x. And the two numbers that multiply together to give me positive 24, but combined to give me negative 10, are negative 6 and negative 4. And as you can see, when I reduce, these two are already reduced, so one of my answers is x minus 6. The other answer is x minus 4. Now remember, x times x is x squared, but I have negative 5x cubed here. So I took out a negative 5x at the very beginning, and that has to be part of my factor. Example 3. Take out the GCF first. Both of these terms have a 5 in common, so the GCF of 125 and negative 80 is 5. And if I pull out a 5, 5 goes into 125 25 times. 5 goes into 80 16 times. This is going to be negative 16. Well, this is a difference of two squares because I have a different sign, and 25x squared is 5x, and 16, the square root of 16, is 4. So the factors to this trinomial are 5 times 5x plus 4 and 5x minus 4, because it follows into the pattern of difference of two squares, which is a plus b, a minus b. Let's say we didn't recognize this as target product, target sum. Let's do our snowflake. Our standard form is ax squared plus bx plus c. Remember that we're looking at this piece right here because we've already taken out the 5. So a is 5. 16 is our c. There is no b. There's not an x term here. So b is equal to 0. So let's fill our items out. 25 times negative 16 is negative 400. The b term is 0. And in this case, ax is 25x. The two numbers that multiply together to give me 400, so it has to be a number that's the same. 20 times 20 gives me 400. So this is positive 20 and negative 20. Now let's reduce our fractions. In this first one, 5 goes into 25x 5 times. 5 goes into 20 4 times. And the second fraction over here, 5 goes into 25 5 times. 5 goes into negative 20, negative 4 times. So we have 5x plus 4 and 5x minus 4. Notice that 5 times 5 is 25x squared, but I have 125. Oh, I remember I took out a 5 at the very beginning. These are the factors. Let's look at number 4. Number 4, let's pull out the greatest common factor. The greatest common factor is negative 3, but when I look at the variables, the greatest common factor among the variables is x squared, so I need to pull that out. So negative 3x squared into both of these terms. Well, negative 3x squared into negative 3x cubed is just an x. Negative into negative is a positive, and this will just leave me x plus 4. This is not a trinomial. It's not a difference of squares. I am done on this one. Let's look at 5. Notice on this particular problem, I cannot take it a GCF because the GCF of all three of these terms is 1. So let's go ahead and do the snowflake. The target product is 6 times 1, which is 6. The target sum is negative 5. AX is 6x. Remember, this is ax squared plus bx plus c, so a is 6. And then the two numbers that multiply together to give me 6, but combine to give me negative 5 are negative 2 and negative 3. Negative 2 times negative 3 is positive 6. Negative 2 plus negative 3 is negative 5. So let's reduce these two fractions right here. In the first one, 2 goes into 6 3 times. 2 goes into negative 2, negative 1 times. The negative sign has to remain on the bottom. In the second one, 3 goes into 6x 2 times. 3 goes into 3 1 time. This is going to be negative. The negative has to stay on bottom. I did not take out a GCF. The two factors are 3x minus 1 and 2x minus 1. Look at number 6. I could pull out a GCF of 2. 2 goes into 18x squared, 9x squared times. 2 goes into negative 24, negative 12 times. 2 goes into negative 10, negative 5 times. Let's do our snowflake. Target product, 9 times negative 5 is negative 45. Target sum is negative 12. Remember, this is AX, so my AX at this point is 9X. And the two numbers that multiply together to give me negative 12, but add to give me negative 45, are negative 15 and positive 3. Let's reduce these fractions. On this side here, 3 goes into 9 3 times. 3 goes into negative 15, negative 5 times. Remember, the negative has to stay on the bottom. Let's look at this fraction. 3 goes into 9x, 3x times. 3 goes into 3, 1 time. So the first set is 3x minus 5. The second one is 3x plus 1. Now 3 times 3 is 9, not 18. Oh, I gotta remember, the 2 is also part of that factor. And that concludes this portion of our quadratic systems with factoring review.